Welcome to webinar number 4 in this series of overcoming the 5 biggest blocks in your Mary Kay business. This webinar is on procrastination, so we'll start later. I think maybe I can play that joke out a little too much. All right, my purpose in this webinar is to go for about 30, 45, or maybe a little bit more minutes. And I want to teach you what I know to be true, what I know to be real, what I know to be honest about the inner game of success, specifically in Mary Kay, although none of these issues are Mary Kay specific. All these issues are human behavior problems, but everybody in Mary Kay is a human, so they're going to apply there. I'm just going to be giving Mary Kay examples because that's who we have on the line here. We'll talk about 3 main things. The 3 main reasons why we procrastinate, the 3 solutions to end those procrastination reasons, and then finally, how to get individualized support. So stick around to the end. You can share your ahas, any comments that you have in the Pink Caddy Coaching Facebook group. I believe most of you are in that group already. If you're not, you can go to that website and ask to join the group. You can download the file in that group. Under the file section for the webinar workbook, you can find it right here on the webinar as well, and it's been emailed to you. The only thing I think I didn't do is I didn't print one out and mail it directly to your physical address, but I've done everything else, I think, to make it available. If you have questions on the webinar and you're live on the webinar, you can type it in the webinar chat box. If you're listening to this on replay, you can type it into whatever comment section you can find if there's one on the page. And my invitation, as always, on these webinars is to take notes of inspiration, the thoughts that you have in your head. Don't worry so much about all the words that I have on my screen and the things that come out of my mouth, because you can listen to the replay or watch the replay and catch those words and listen to what I say. But you're not going to be able to catch the inspired thoughts in your head unless you capture them. And stick around to the end. I'll talk about how to get that individualized, personalized support. My invitation to you is to not ask yourself if you know this information. That's an intellectual question, and the answer for almost everybody will be yes for a lot of these concepts. The real question is, do you do this? Is it in your body? Meaning, you might know how to get over fear, but you still might create fear when you think about making phone calls or when you think about warm chatting somebody. That's a situation where you know it, but you're not doing it, or you're not being it, or you're not feeling it. And I would say that knowing it without doing it is actually more dangerous, because your mind will convince you that you don't need to pay attention anymore. You don't need to really study this component anymore because you already got it. And that's where a lot of people are. That's where most people are, actually, where they intellectually know something, but they don't really do it. And our brains are constantly convincing us of all kinds of things that are not supportive for us. They're not helpful. Our intellect is constantly trying to solve what it thinks is an intellectual void. So it constantly just wants something that you don't know yet. And the problem with that is, number one, as I just mentioned, knowing it but not doing it means you haven't really gotten it. But number 2, it just sends us on these wild goose chases. And it convinces us that what we need is more information, but we need it fast. We need it quick. So most people are programmed to just constantly seek quick results. They don't want to do the work. They don't want to put any effort in. They don't want to pay for anything. They just want whatever it is to be quick and simple and effortless. Now, I know that everybody doesn't, in Mary Kay, if you're listening to this webinar, you don't really, truly believe that, but your brain has been programmed to seek that. And we see it in the media all over the place. I mean, everything that we're getting marketed to, or everything that's marketing to us, is just all quick fix, right? Like, all you need is just buy the IVR 3000. You don't have to spend any time focusing on yourself. You don't have to learn anything. Let us just take all the information out of your head, or let us just solve all your problems with one quick sweep. And the brain goes, oh, really? That's possible? And then we convince ourselves that it's actually possible. So the unconscious mind and the intellect have convinced us through their programming that this is what we're in search for. And because we tend to try to hope that that's true, we'll buy those kinds of programs or we'll buy those kinds of products. And so marketers become very smart and they sell what people buy. They don't sell what's real, they sell what people buy. And so one of the big problems that we have in our society is that we've been convinced by society, by our programming, that we can just remove all the things that we don't want in us with a pill or with a very simple I don't even know. I mean, most of it to me fall under this idea of a pill, whether it's an actual pill that you swallow or just some kind of magic bullet, some kind of quick fix solution. And really, most of those things are just avoidance. If it is an actual physical pill, it'll just be some kind of numbing mechanism, probably, so that you don't see or you don't feel what's real in your body or in your heart or what have you. You just pretend that it's not there. And then we have all kinds of misdirection being sold to us, and we're searching for it where we don't want to look at the thing that is actually the solutions, but we want to get misdirected or we are misdirected over here. So the bottom line is the intellect is the problem. And I want you, as best you can, to suspend your intellect and all the beliefs that you have about what's possible, about yourself, about what you've tried in the past that hasn't worked, and therefore nothing will work for you. I want you to suspend all of those limitations, because there really truly are powerful results that you can get in your life and in your business. So it's not possible to stop all instances of procrastination, nor would you really want to. You wouldn't want to reprogram your brain to where it doesn't stop and hesitate and think things over at all, because you just run right out in the middle of the street and be dead in probably a few short hours. But you can absolutely stop the effect that procrastination has in the most important areas of your life and of your business. And when that happens, you'll be able to make immediate changes. This sabotaging pattern is different than other patterns that might take a long, long time for them to unwind themselves. Once you clear your procrastination in the biggest areas, you can just take immediate action. So this particular area can get you very, very quick results if you're willing to focus on what is the true solution and then take action on it. And obviously, once you stop procrastinating in the biggest areas of your life, you'll be taking more action. And with more action, you'll get more outcomes. With more outcomes, you'll get more of the results that you want. Donna said she peeled away the layers that were hiding the limiting beliefs that had been affecting her entire life. This was at a 2-day event. Actually, this might have been a 1-day event. So she immediately felt liberated and unstoppable, and she was able to get into immediate action. Rolion said, you've done more to educate me about myself in the last month than I was able to do in 51 years. One of the reasons is because we tend to try to understand ourselves according to our previous perspectives. And so we can go on and on and on and on. It doesn't matter how much time is passed on the calendar. If we don't change our perspectives and we don't adopt different solutions, then the same problems will just continue, no matter how long we've been wanting them to go away. Fran said, I learned more about human behavior from one call than my $40,000 degree in psychology. Now, I'm not here to bash psychology or counseling or anything really, because it's all great when people use it and implement it properly. But we have this societal collective belief system, in my opinion. And that collective belief system really holds us back, because we don't challenge these beliefs since we don't think there's another way. And in reality, there are other ways. So let's get into your business, procrastination in general. I mean, specifically, rather. You already know what to do, but for most of us, procrastination either stops us completely or slows us down. There are different reasons for procrastination. I'll tell you the top 3. And each of those requires a different solution. So if you're just searching for the one size fits all approach to end all procrastination, it's not going to come unless you just accidentally land on the reason that you're procrastinating in that particular time, but it won't solve the other reasons. And it's just interesting how so many people, again, I think it's because of our society programming, we're just looking for the generalized solutions. We're so afraid of looking at ourselves. I think that's because we have a lot of shame. We have a lot of limiting beliefs. We don't like looking at ourselves in the mirror, whether it's because of what we look like, literally look like, or what thoughts we have about ourselves if we ever look ourselves in the eyes. I know a lot of people that just simply cannot look themselves in the eyes and have any kind of a healthy moment. So we have so much resistance to actually looking at ourselves in any capacity, but that keeps us from finding the real solutions. So we can't just keep trying to solve our individual challenges with generalized solutions. At best, we can just make small steps of progress, but we can't actually make the big, gigantic leaps that every single one of you is looking for. So if you're looking for a big leap in your individual life, then you need an individual solution. Otherwise, you're just going to keep tapping general solutions on top of you, and it won't really solve the problem to a big degree, to a big extent. Now, procrastination is a you problem. And what I mean is, I don't mean that you are the problem. I mean, it's a you problem, meaning that it is attached to you. So wherever you go, it's going to follow you. This is a pattern that isn't just tied to certain circumstances. Fears can sometimes be tied to just certain circumstances. So if you remove yourself from a particular environment, then those fears might not get triggered. You'll still bring the fears with you, but they might not get triggered. Whereas procrastination pretty much follows you anywhere in any room because of the reasons that I will spell out here. But it absolutely does not have to be that way. Anybody who has procrastination issues can completely shift. So before we move on, I want to launch a quick poll here. Actually, I want to do two polls. So this first poll is very simple. It's just 3 questions, or 3 options rather, and you should have already seen it pop up on your screen. Very simple. Just how much does procrastination affect you in your life and in your business? So either tremendously, somewhat, or not at all. I wouldn't expect very many not at all people to show up on the How to Overcome Your Procrastination webinars. So it certainly makes sense that most of you are dealing with the problem. So at the risk of playing that joke out beyond humor, no, I'm not even going to say it. I was going to make some stupid joke about, the people that really need this help haven't filled out the poll yet. Anyway, so I'm going to give you about 5 more seconds. Almost all of you have voted, have taken the survey, and not surprisingly, 3/4 of you put tremendously. So this is a big issue, obviously. And I have one more quick question for you. If you could wave a magic wand and remove your sabotage, in this case, we can just focus on procrastination. If you could just remove your procrastination and you took committed action, quick committed action, and you stayed committed on that action, I want to know, how much money do you think you could make more in your business? How much more money per month? I don't know if it says, might not have said per month, but how much more monthly income? If you answered it based on a year, you can change your response. How much more money do you think you can make on a monthly basis if you were able to wave a magic wand and get rid of your procrastination? Because the procrastination would lead to clearing up a lot of the other sabotaging patterns as well. Action is usually the remedy for so much of our sabotage. All right, I'll give you another 5-10 seconds here. Most of you have filled it out. You don't have to take a long time. Hopefully none of you pulled out a calculator and you're actually calculating it. It's just a guess, whatever's in your immediate awareness. All right, so almost everybody, 9 out of 10 of you said more than $1,000. So almost everybody says if you could clear this away, then you'd be making at least $1,000 extra in your business. And the vast majority of you said more than $3,000. So 70%, over 70% of you said that you'd be able to make more than $3,000 every single month if you stopped procrastinating. Awesome. So the reason I ask you to do that poll is to just get some tangible leverage here. I want you to realize that there are real results at stake. See, the unconscious mind doesn't really understand theory. It doesn't understand when you say, if I could just get over this thing, then I could get into the pink Cadillac one day, or I could become a director one day, or I could become a national sales director one day. Your unconscious mind doesn't really engage in that very well because it doesn't play theoretical games and it doesn't understand the concept of the future. So when you try to motivate yourself by some theoretical goal in the future, you will not engage your unconscious mind at all. So what will be left is all of your intellectual fears that haven't really been overcome at all because there's no leverage there. But when you realize you're actually losing out every single month by not making these changes, that causes your mind to see it a little bit differently. And so what I want you to honestly think about is every month that you don't make these changes, $1,000 just walked out the door, or whatever your dollar amount was. And you can be conservative and lower it a little bit. But when you realize that there's literally money walking out of the door that should be in your bank account, and there are people that are walking away that should be in your business, and there's fun walking away from you that should be in your life, and there's freedom walking out the door that should be in your life, and there's fulfillment walking out of your heart that should be in your heart. When we think about losing things that we could otherwise keep if we did the work, then we will usually have more leverage around doing the work. So stop trying to theoretically motivate yourself. It's not going to work. If it would work, if it had the chance to work, it already would have. So if you've been trying to do that for a long, long time, I don't even care what you've been doing. I can tell you it's not working because you've been trying it for a long, long time. And continuing to try the same thing over and over and over again is not going to miraculously produce any kind of different result. So this is about changing the game and realizing that every day, every month you don't make these changes, there are consequences. There are consequences to not doing the work. This is the opposite way that most people think, which is important because if the way that your mind has been thinking is producing a result that you want to change, then you need to change the way your mind is thinking. So this is one of the ways to do that. Now, before we go on, I'll tell you a little bit more about me. For those of you that have been on these webinars, this is as you can see, this is a different picture of that family. And that's really just so that you know I didn't like rent a family. This is actually my family. And we've got pictures in Hawaii to prove it to you, or the Dodger game, or whatever. I get a sense that my jokes are just really landing today, which is great. I can't see any of you, so I'm just pretending that you're all laughing really hard. That's one of the benefits of being on a webinar like this, is I can decide that my jokes are really good right now. So I'm a father and a husband first. My family is the most important thing to me. I do everything else second. I've got this amazing family, Sybil, McKenna, and Exley. And my whole journey started when I was 13 years old. I was nearly killed in a hit and run bicycle accident. And I made a choice that day, made a decision to myself that since I didn't know when my last breath was going to be, and I think we all understand that intellectually, but I really hadn't experienced that firsthand until that day. I just made a promise to myself that I would do everything I could to live a life of excellence and never settle for mediocrity. And I thought I had changed lanes and was on that path, but for almost 20 years, I didn't make any significant shifts. I underachieved in pretty much everything that I tried, whether it was sports related or later in life business. Really, the only achievement area that I didn't fail in my opinion, is school. But everywhere else, I underachieved, and I didn't know why. It was super frustrating to me. I couldn't understand. And it wasn't until 2005 that I had a gigantic breakthrough with a life coach at a seminar. And he helped me realize that the reason I was holding myself back was because of a belief that I had inside. It wasn't because I lacked the skills. It wasn't because I lacked the discipline or the work ethic or any of those things. And I would say pretty much all of you don't lack any of those things either. That's one of the biggest frustrations that we hear all the time is I just don't know why I can't get my head on straight, or I don't know why I can't move through these fears. I just don't know why. And usually in the tone of the question is disdain, it's shame, it's anger. It's definitely not encouragement and self-love. So most people have a lot of negative judgments towards themselves for not being able to get over the issues that they know they should be able to get over. And a lot of times they know how to get over them, but they just can't. That's the situation I was in. And it wasn't until this gentleman helped me process a deep-seated belief that I had that was actually stopping all of that. And what happened is once I got rid of that belief in that moment, my life fundamentally changed. And I wanted to share with everybody that feeling. That's what still drives me today. That feeling of such a liberating breakthrough that literally for me, it was 15 minutes. In a 15-minute coaching session, I was able to fundamentally change the way I feel about my life. But it wasn't this temporary, ego-driven, shallow motivational moment. For the next several weeks, people were asking me what happened to me. Even my wife asked me, what happened to you? And I started to take action in ways that I had never taken action before because the anchor that had been holding me down, it was like the bottom of the seafloor. I had an anchor down there and I didn't know about it. As soon as that got lifted, then I could move. Then I felt released. I felt liberated. And I started to take a lot of action and we made a lot of money. I started to get a lot of results and my life fundamentally changed. And then the following year, as I started to talk to anybody that would listen about this, I fell into the world of Mary Kay and I started the Pink Caddy Coach brand. And here we are 13 years later, still in this conversation about changing lives and changing our bodies and not just our minds. But I personally am still in Mary Kay as well. So let's dive directly into procrastination. There are basically two principles of human behavior that are relevant for procrastination. And one of the things that I'm going to do is simplify this conversation as much as I possibly can at the risk of you thinking it's not the solution. What I mean by that is the intellect has convinced us that the solutions must be really complicated because our lives feel really complicated. So the reality is the solutions are either things that you've already known for a long time but haven't implemented them, as I alluded to earlier, or they're such simple concepts that when you learn them, you dismiss them because they can't be that powerful to overcome 40 years of procrastination, when in reality, the only thing that can pierce through complication is simplicity. Yet most people don't believe the simple answers are the real answers when it comes to their own behavior patterns. And obviously, I invite you to drop that belief. So there are really two basic principles of human behavior. We resist what we don't enjoy. So if we're asked to do something that we don't want to do, we're going to resist that. Number two, we seek pleasure instead of pain. In every moment, with every decision that we make, we would rather make a choice that will involve pleasure than a choice that will involve pain. So it's very, very simple. It's like the two knobs on an Etch-a-Sketch. There's only two knobs. You can make it go up and down or left and right. That's it. Now you can use combinations to make them go diagonal and make them do swirls and things like that. But the simplicity at the core is what's really important to grab onto. So in every moment, we are making choices based on these two basic human behavior principles. And it gets in the way, or it creates rather, procrastination patterns. So there are three main reasons that we procrastinate. The first reason is simply, I don't wanna. I don't want to do that thing. It's just that simple. Because if you don't want to do something, you'll find other things to do instead. We will always be drawn to what we want to do before what we need to do or what we should do. Now, I want you to pause for a second and think about the way that you talk about the activities in your Mary Kay business. I bet that very few of you, if any of you, say, I really want to make 10 phone calls today. I really want to go out and warm chat some people today. I really want to see if some business owners will let me put some facial boxes out here today. I really want to go out and confront my fears. Of course, you don't say that because of that last statement. It feels like you're confronting your fears. If you check in with your language, I would bet almost all of you, almost all of the time, when talking about Mary Kay, are using the words need or should or have to. I know I need to make 10 phone calls. Well, you just told your mind you don't want to. Every time you try to motivate yourself and every time you use language around needing, shoulding, or having to, you've told your mind it will not be fun because you never, ever have to motivate yourself to do anything fun. So the language that you're using tells me you don't want to do these activities. Now, if you don't want to do these activities, I don't care how good you get at motivating yourself. The best you can do is motivate yourself in short-term moments. Now, those moments might last several minutes. They might last several hours. They might last several days. They might last several weeks, but they are moments. They will come to an end as long as you're motivating yourself to do something you do not want to do. So this is not an issue of you having the procrastination bug. This is an issue of you not wanting to do the work. So the solution is to change your relationship to the work. You have to find the fun and the joy in your business, but not in the results of your business. You have to find the fun and the joy in the process of your business. If you cannot find the fun and the joy in warm chatting, you will not want to warm chat. Now, you might say, well, it's just a necessary evil that I got to do so that I can be a director. Great. You are, if that's what you do, I promise you this, you will build your business on irritation. And I'm just going to be real here, and I don't care if this ruffles any feathers. A lot of Mary Kay women hate their business. Now, they don't really, truly, intellectually hate their business at the core, but they've forgotten why they love their business. And therefore, their intellect actually does hate their business. It hates their business because every time they think about the business, that's when they get afraid. That's when they get sad. That's when they get frustrated. So your unconscious mind is paying attention. Every time I put the Mary Kay hat on and I go out and I do my business, I come home beating myself up, feeling frustrated, feeling depressed. I think maybe we should stop doing Mary Kay. And then it actually tries to protect you from the negative feelings you're experiencing by stopping you from doing the business. It's doing this for you. It's doing this for you because you don't like the business. This is Well, I'm going to stop there. I was just I was contemplating on how much I wanted to go on there. The bottom line is, if something's not fun, your unconscious mind will try to protect you from it. And it doesn't matter that theoretically you know that Mary Kay should be fun. You know that it could make you money. You know that it's a way for you to accomplish something that you really want to accomplish. None of that stuff matters. Your unconscious mind is paying attention to your emotions, and it's watching what triggers negative emotions. So if negative emotions get triggered when you are in Mary Kay, it will do everything it can to keep you out of Mary Kay. I don't care how much that might irritate people, because I'm not making any judgments. I'm just telling you how the unconscious mind works. Now, the sad part is the unconscious mind has actually seduced and convinced a lot of women that they don't love Mary Kay when they actually truly do. That's what's sad to me, that many of you have forgotten why you joined this business in the first place. You've forgotten the state of mind you were in when you signed your name to that agreement. You've forgotten it because you've let all the other negative experiences get on top of it. And so I really, truly think it's sad when we have forgotten the reason we started something and we've succumbed to the influence of the intellectual mind that tells us it's scary to talk to people. It's scary to to make effort. It's scary to try. All of that is because the unconscious mind is trying to protect you from something that you're not enjoying. So the answer is to enjoy it. The answer is to fall back in love. Now, I don't think any of you would be in the business if at one point in time you weren't in love with the business. So again, this is not any kind of negative judgment towards Mary Kay or anybody else. This is actually trying to talk you back into love. This is about you falling back into the reasons you did this in the first place. When you say things like, I need to make phone calls, I can guarantee you that's coming from a place of personal gain. You need to make phone calls so that you can achieve something that your ego wants. In that scenario, you're not in love with the business. You're just doing the business and you're running through people so you can get something that you want. That's egotistical and selfish. I know you're not doing it on purpose, but I'm just calling it like it is. That's what's happening in that moment. The way to get around that is not to try to wrestle with your sabotage. It's to fall back in love. And I know each and every one of you at some point in time didn't have to motivate yourself to make phone calls. Now, it might have been just the very first phone call that you made, or it might have been a time period in your business where you were so in love with helping people and encouraging women and enriching their lives that you weren't focused on the goals that you had intellectually. You were just focused on helping people. That's the solution. Fall in love with the process of helping people, connecting with people. Each and every one of you has a desire in your heart that will overcome the procrastination. I promise you. I've been doing this with Mary Kay ladies for 13 years. There has never been a woman that I've ever coached that I can remember right now who didn't have a deep passion for helping women that we couldn't access. But just about every single one of them had it covered up. It was covered up by the irritations of doing the business from an egocentric place. So the solution to this one is not to wrestle with the procrastination. It's to fall back in love with the process itself, with connecting with people, not the outcome of the process. If your joy is only found in the results, but not found in the process, you will always struggle. You will always have to motivate yourself, and you'll always be like this cat right here. I love this picture, right? You put a leash on him and say, hey, let's go for a walk. He's like, nope, I don't want it. Every time you hear yourself say, I need to make 10 phone calls today, that's what your unconscious mind, that's what your core self is doing. Nope, I don't want it. It's dangerous on that thing. It's scary in that phone. I don't want it. Because in that moment, you're not in love with the process. You're hung up on the failure and rejection and some of the things that I talked about in some of the other webinars. Reason number 2 for procrastination is something that I am brilliant at. I call it seeking complexity confidence. So the story goes like this. We are programmed that if we can solve problems, we're smart. And the harder the problem is, the smarter we are. We're programmed this way. We're programmed this way in school, especially. But we're programmed in life that if there's a problem that's easy to solve, there's not a whole lot of pride in that one. But if we solve a really difficult problem, then we feel better about ourselves. Now, where that becomes a big sabotaging pattern is that we will create more complex problems so that we can feel better about ourselves, so that we can feel more confidence. So we're actually going to make situations more difficult so that if we can win under more difficult scenarios, then we get to feel better about ourselves if we succeed. In college, I was famous for not starting my term paper until literally a few hours before it was due, start typing it, realize I was out of ink, had to go to the store to get ink. Then I didn't have enough paper, had to go on campus to find somebody who had paper. I had to go through this process every single time pretty much of just high pressure, high stress. I would get my paper done during the time period that the class is already going. Sometimes I would walk in with my pajamas from the night before in an afternoon class. You know, class starts at 4. I walk in at 4:45, just drop the paper on the teacher's desk, walk back out, don't attend class, and get an A on the paper. My friends would get angry at me because I could do that and they couldn't. That made me feel so good. There was no reason for me to change. I mean, why? I get A's anyway, and I get to impress my friends who are saying, oh man, I just wish I could be like you. Watch how late I start next time. So I've had this pattern because I don't lack confidence that I can do things. Neither do hardly any of you. You don't lack confidence. The lacking is in self-esteem, which is different. But if we don't lack confidence, then creating more pressure by procrastination is actually exciting to us. It's exciting to the piece that wants to see how big of a problem we can succeed at. But the problem with that is a lot of times we'll procrastinate so late, so long that we actually diminish our ability to produce what we could otherwise produce. So it's a dangerous road to travel. The solution here is to stop pretending that solving difficult problems makes you any more smarter as a human. Don't try to be more smarter. That doesn't mean try to be more dumber, but it means don't pretend that the size of the problem that you solve is connected to your value as a person. Because that's the self-esteem issue that I just mentioned. If our self-esteem is attached to the size of the problems that we create, then we will always have a tendency to create bigger problems so that we can give ourselves an injection of more self-esteem. So when we separate ourselves, which I went into in depth in the previous webinar on perfectionism, when we can separate ourselves from who we are and what we do, that's the solution here. And then it doesn't matter. There's no reason. You're not going to feel any better about yourself as a person if you wait till the last minute. So then it'll be easier to attack that procrastination pattern. And reason number 3 is the protection of self-image. We all have a self-image. And while a lot of us have negative self-images, there's always positive self-images underneath, buried way down deep, that we hope might potentially be true. So we might have a self-image of being a loser, being less than, being imperfect, being always not good enough. But deep, deep down, we have a self-image that we're hoping just maybe might be true, which is that we are actually good enough, that we are lovable, that we are capable of succeeding. And a lot of our lives is spent protecting that self-image and simultaneously hoping that what's deep down inside is maybe true. So we're protecting a negative self-image, but we're hoping that the positive self-image might be true. However, we're scared to death to find out. It's not worth the risk, because our deepest fear is really confirming our self-image isn't true, confirming our positive self-image isn't true. It's the confirmation that we're not lovable. It's the confirmation that we are not good enough, that we can't succeed. That's such a deep pain, because that can only lead to despair and then depression, and you have no hope at that point. So the human brain knows that that is a dangerous, dangerous combination. We do not ever want to let ourselves potentially go in to that cell, to that prison. And so it'll do everything that possibly can to not risk confirming that that's true. So if we always have an excuse that it's not your fault, that you just waited too long, that you're a perfectionist, that somebody else didn't raise you right, they're not leading you correctly, if you always have an excuse, then you won't confirm your deepest fear, because you'll always have something to blame. And procrastination is actually one of those things that we can use to blame. Therefore, us failing doesn't mean we're not good enough. It just means that we're a procrastinator. And deep down inside, you've got a little girl inside of you that's saying, please, please, maybe I actually might be good enough. It's protecting that little girl's hope. And one of the things that happens is when we want something more, we usually resist it more at the same time. Desire and resistance are directly proportional. When one goes up, the other goes up. So the only reason that we would have a lot of resistance around something, which would lead to more procrastination, is if we really want something about that thing. Now, I told you earlier, you don't want to do the process, but you want something deeper. And for most of you, it's not about achieving the goal. It's about being proud of yourself for once in your life sometimes, that you actually tried something and stuck to it. It's about proving to yourself that you're valuable. So there is a high desire, but it's not the desire to achieve the tangible outcome that your intellect has convinced you that you really want. The desire is found on that path maybe, but it's way deep below the surface, probably underneath your radar of awareness. Because if something's not really important to you, you won't have the same level of resistance. And many people get frustrated when they realize they don't procrastinate around things that they don't care about. Of course not. Why? Why would you procrastinate around something you don't care about? There's no risk. There's no reason to procrastinate if there's no risk. So the more that we desperately want something, when it's coming from a wounded place, means there's more risk of emotional devastation if we don't get it. And so procrastination is actually protecting our hope that we might be enough by creating a blame to distract us in case we fail. Now, similar to what I said about some of the other patterns, the solution is actually very simple. It's unconditional love of self. Unconditional, not conditional. Don't just love yourself when you're doing well. Don't just love yourself when other people are happy with you. Don't just love yourself when other people are approving of you. Don't just love yourself when you weigh a certain amount. Don't just love yourself when other people are telling you yes. Don't just love yourself when you're in a certain suit or in a certain car or at a certain level. If you only love yourself when those things are apparent, then that's called conditional love. Conditional love will continue to produce procrastination because it has to. So these are the three main reasons. The solutions are deep, but they're actually very simple. So I'd rather help you remove the reason for the procrastination than just try to wrestle with the procrastination. Now, Koti was an ex-client. Clearly, she got rid of her procrastination. She brought in 80 new team members in a month, 28,000 in production. But more than that, because she wasn't chasing her enoughness, she actually created more balance in her life at the same time. And that's usually not the case. When we're trying to achieve things in order to feel better about ourselves, we don't create more balance, we create less balance. Something's got to give. If we're chasing our self-esteem through our accomplishments, something's got to give. But when you do it the right way from a foundational place, there's no sacrifice whatsoever. And then you can just achieve and stay happy at the same time. And that achievement actually won't increase your happiness in an unhealthy way either. And then Kim said the fear and intimidation that used to shut her down is just gone. Now she just asks for what she wants. There's no reason to procrastinate. There's no reason to be afraid. There's no reason for any kind of resistance, for rejection. There's nothing. So she just asks for what she wants and she gets a lot more results. And in the end, those of you that have been on my webinars before, you've seen this question because I think it's at the core of our assessment of our own lives. At the end of our life, we're not going to care about whether we achieve those tangible goals. The only question we're going to ask ourselves is, did we go for it? And if we went for it, then we'll have pride. If we didn't go for it, then we'll have shame. I mean, it's just that simple. And so if we know that that's going to be the most critical question we ask ourselves, then let's live according to that standard. Let's start judging ourselves according to our effort and not our results. So my invitation off this call is not to buy anything. I don't have anything for you to buy. My invitation is just to get support, get an individual free coaching call. There's the link there, pinkcattycoach.com/book-my-call. I'll type it in the chat box here too, so you can just click on it. So it just went out to everybody. You can click on it. Now this is an actual sales, I'm sorry, it's not a sales call. It's an actual coaching call. So we'll help you identify what's in your way and help you have a neurological shift on the call. We'll help you identify what changes you might not be seeing, or a depth of something that you haven't seen before that actually needs to shift. And these changes are in your programming. They're not in you. You don't need to change. In fact, we need to release more of you, who you truly are. We need to change some of the programming that's keeping you held back, some of the fears, some of the procrastination, some of the beliefs. That's really what a breakthrough is. It's just helping you get back to yourself. So it's a complimentary call. There's no reason not to do it. There's no risk. So book it. I mean, I don't. You're gonna get something out of it. And I'm gonna share these two questions that I shared last night for the first time in this series. My life didn't fundamentally change until I asked myself two very powerful questions. How long will my ego continue struggling to find an unfindable solution that I cannot see before I decide I've wasted enough time, I've wasted enough energy, I've wasted enough money, I've cried enough tears, and finally it's time for me to get the help that I cannot provide myself? I had to surrender my ego in order to get to the next step and ask the next question, which was, how many people have I not helped because I'm in my own way? That's what the ego does to every single one of us. This is not an individual problem. You're not missing anything. God didn't leave anything out of you. You've just been programmed in such a way that as of right now is not giving you what you want in your life. So let's change the programming. It's just that simple. I told you a little bit about that story of when I made that shift. I got into motion, made $300,000 the year after that, and made $5 million since. None of that would have happened if I wouldn't have changed my programming, but I had to get out of my own way and stop trying to do it myself. So whatever goals you're not accomplishing can only be accomplished through solutions you haven't tried. It's that easy. The container that you're currently in cannot give you the results that you're not getting inside that container, whatever those recipes are. And I said earlier, if you don't get the personalized one-on-one help, you can't free yourself. You can't liberate yourself. You can only be a watered down version of somebody else. And all of the problems are in your intellect. All the solutions are in your body. They're in your spirit. They're in your heart. They're in your neurology. They're in your physical memories. That's where all the answers are. But 99.9% of the people are trying to find their answers in their intellect. You're in the wrong area. You're in the problem trying to find the solution. And most people can't understand how this works because they're not coaches. Coaching, private professional coaching, is a specialized skill. It's not just affirmations and personal development concepts. It's a specialized skill, understanding how the human brain works at the deepest levels, understanding how beliefs are created, understanding how to go in and extract certain things from our brains, from our minds, from our memories, from our hearts. It understands where we hold on to and how we hold on to painful memories and embarrassment in our bodies. It understands how to untie the knots that the intellect tied by going a different route. Professional coaching is different than just personal development or just leadership. And I didn't know that until I had that experience with a professional coach. And then I said, dude, what did you do to me? I literally emailed him a couple months later and said, what did you do to me? I don't understand. He goes, of course you don't understand. You're not a coach. Go get certified as a coach and then you'll get it. And that's what I did. I went and got certified and then I got it. So most people are trying to solve problems that they cannot solve with the comprehension that they currently have. And so my invitation to you is get some of that professional coaching support and let us just see what happens. So the final question I'm going to leave you with today is not what's the cost of taking action. I asked you earlier in the webinar, what's the cost of you not taking action? And most of you, 70% of you said it's over $3,000 a month that you're leaving on the table. That's literally walking out the door. That means $36,000 a year, according to what you said. Some of you was $10,000 or more. So some of you, the numbers are higher. $36,000 every year. If that's true, that you're leaving on the table, you have to start thinking about it that way to engage your mind another way, because your mind will want to stop the bleeding of money, but your mind will not chase a theoretical goal that it doesn't currently comprehend. So when you start asking different questions, you'll start getting different answers and you'll have a lot more leverage. So I'm going to end here, everyone, tonight. I'm not going to dive in and look at all of the comments. I'm in a little bit of a time crunch, not a little bit, a big time crunch right now. So I will catch up with any of you if you have questions that I didn't address in the Pink Caddy coaching group, or you can email me directly. And I appreciate all of you for being here. I celebrate you. I support you. I love you. And we'll talk to you soon. Take care, everyone.